Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to upgrade the CPU of a Dell Precision M4400 mobile workstation. I'll be switching out the Intel Core 2 Duo T9550, which runs at 2.6 GHz, for a T9600 from a Dell Latitude E6500, which runs at 2.8 GHz. Upgrading the CPU of your laptop might be a slightly difficult thing to do, but considering the increase in performance you'll get, it is usually worth it.
The upgradation of a CPU in a laptop differs per laptop model. However, I can give you a couple of tips for choosing a different processor. Make sure that the socket of the processor you want is the same as the one that is in your laptop currently. Also, the FSB or front side bus of that CPU needs to be the same as your current CPU, or it needs to be supported by the chipset of your motherboard. The TDP or thermal design power is important to keep in mind. The TDP tells us the amount of heat the CPU is going to output under load, measured in watts. It is generally not advised to put a CPU of a much higher TDP in a laptop, as it is likely that this cooling solution won't be up to par. Even though your CPU might be supported by the chipset of your motherboard, it can very well be that it isn't supported by the BIOS or basic input-output system of your laptop. I would always advise you to look up online if there are other people who are running that specific CPU in their laptop or have upgraded theirs to this CPU. If you are going to upgrade to a high-end CPU, in many cases a BIOS update is required. In my case, I was able to find a PDF online with all the specifications of my specific laptop. In here we can see that this laptop supports Intel Core 2 Duo, Intel Core 2 Duo Extreme, and even Intel Core 2 Quad mobile processors, with a front-side bus up to 1066 MHz. If we then go to the Intel website, we can indeed see that the T9600 is an Intel Core 2 Duo with a front-side bus of 1066 MHz, and that it supports the same sockets as the CPU that is currently installed.
So, we're going to start off by taking our donor laptop, the Dell Latitude E6500. We are going to be removing the processor from this one. We are going to be putting that in the Precision, and then the old CPU from the Precision is going back into this laptop, so that this laptop is also still functional. First thing we're going to do, which in fact you want to do if you are working on a PC, if it is a desktop or a laptop, you always want to remove any power going through the system. So in this case we're going to remove the battery, and we're going to just put that aside. And we also then want to just quickly open it up. Ooh, bit of a tight hinge it is. And just press the power button a couple of seconds, just to make sure that there's absolutely no power going through the circuitry. And we just close it down again and turn it upside down. What we then want to do is to remove the bottom cover, and Dell made it really easy with the Latitude series. This is a Latitude from 2008. In this case we can remove this entire bottom cover just by unscrewing this one screw right here, which we will do, and then the screw also stays conveniently in its place, and then we can slide the bottom cover in its entirety off, revealing the inside components. Now that we have access to the inside components, first thing we want to do is remove the fan right here, which is held in place by 3 screws. One here, another one over here, the last one right here. Don't forget to unplug it. And then we can remove it. What we then want to do is, the processor is located right here, and in order to take the cooler off, we need to loosen these 4 screws right here, and then we can take the cooling assembly off, and then we have access to the CPU and the socket. For this I'm actually going to be using a different screwdriver, which I need to put in the right direction. For screwing, first we'll take this one. I'm just going to loosen the screws one by one a little bit, so not that you remove one screw entirely, because there's quite a bit of tension on the CPU itself, so you want to loosen them a bit by bit. Let's see how we are doing. This should be good. And there we go. There is our cooling assembly revealing the processor. Okay, so now that we have access to the processor, we can actually go about removing it. The CPU itself is in a socket, which is in this case pink, and on top of the socket we can find a little screw. If we twist that screw 180 degrees with our flathead screwdriver, it goes from the locked state to the unlocked state. And when it is in the unlocked state, we can actually pick it up. If we remove this little wire right here, I'll just do this like this, and there we go. There is our Intel Core 2 Duo T9600. Well, right now I'm going to do the same thing to the Dell Precision M4400. The procedure I did on the E6500 is also applicable on this laptop, since they are, in terms of design, practically identical. And therefore I will just fast forward this bit, because it is the same you have already seen. Well, as it seems, I wasn't completely right. Because in this case, because the Precision series differs from the Latitude series in the terms of the GPUs that you could choose. And in this case, the Precision has a higher end GPU, which in this case also needs to be removed in order to be able to remove the CPU, which we shall do right now. In this case, it is bolted in with 3 screws right here, and something that is not supposed to be there. So we will just undo these 3 screws. Also a bit by bit. And I think the entire assembly should come off then. And that indeed is the case. Okay, we are now going to switch the 2 CPUs. Firstly, we will take the CPU out of the Precision. So we will just unlock the mechanism, remove the CPU, and watching that how the CPU was in the socket, which was like this, where the little gold pointer was in this position right here, which means that in the same position we need to place the T9600 in it again, and we will lock it in place with our little screwdriver. And there we go, our CPU has been upgraded. However, we can't just put the cooler back on again, because there is still old and dried up thermal paste left on both the cooler as well as the CPU and GPU. Therefore, we're going to have to clean them off. For this, I'm going to be using some specialized cleaning alcohol, as well as some cotton tips. Okay, right now I'm going to be putting on some fresh thermal paste. For this occasion I'm going to be using some Noctua NT-H1, a sort of premium / high performance thermal paste. As you have seen from the cleaning up video, there was way too much thermal paste on both the CPU and the GPU, which can actually quite dramatically reduce the cooling capabilities of your cooler, and therefore I won't apply too much, just a tiny bit. It is quite a tricky task, it is. But you really don't need much. So right now I'm just going to be putting the cooler back on again. Try this out. There we go, cooler is in place. Now we just need to carefully screw everything down again. And yes, all the screws are in place. We will now move the camera over there and screw the cooler in place. That should be good. And well, last but not least, we will add the bottom cover again. And you'll be able to see live with me whether everything has worked out. That should be on. Screw goes back in. We will insert the previously removed battery. Flip it over. And there we have the machine. So you'll see what happens when we press the power button. And it seems, yes, we have the BIOS, bootloader, and yes, Windows is indeed starting. I'll turn up the brightness a bit. Maybe give a zoom in on the screen. Alright, it seems it has worked out fine, which is great. And as you see, Windows is starting. We see the cursor appear with its waiting wheel. And yes, indeed, Windows welcomes us as it always does. And just to verify whether this actually has detected it correctly, we shall just go to Computer, Properties, it's waiting. So we still have a sluggish and slow hard drive, but there we go. You should be able to see there a T9600 Core 2 Duo is in the machine. And Windows also wants us to refresh the Windows Experience Index, which we will do later.
So let's see how our upgrade has worked out. Firstly, we'll take a look at the Windows Experience Index. Before, it scored on a scale of 1 to 7.9, a 6.3 for both the CPU and RAM, and a 6.5 for both GPU tests. Now, it scored a 6.4 for both the CPU and RAM, and also a 6.4 for the GPU, which just goes to show that you can't really take this benchmark too seriously. Then, I ran Cinebench 11.5. This is a CPU benchmark program that renders a large image and, depending on how fast your CPU has done that, gives it a mark. The higher the mark, the better. With the T9550 in place, it got 1.52 points, and with the T9600, it got 1.60 points, which is about a 5.3% increase in performance. To put these scores into perspective, I've made this chart with the scores of other CPUs I've previously benchmarked. As you can see, this CPU isn't doing a bad job at all. And finally, the temperatures. Here we'll be able to see if the repasting I did has had any effect. You have to keep in mind that because the T9600 runs around 230 MHz faster, it'll also produce a bit more heat. Firstly, I booted the machine and let it idle for around 15 minutes. The CPU now ran 10 degrees Celsius cooler and the motherboard around 9. As a load test, I played Counter-Strike Global Offensive for about 30 minutes on one specific map. What's surprising is that despite the higher clock speed, the temperatures have also been reduced significantly. The motherboard dropped around 11 degrees Celsius and the CPU between 7 and 13. What is also worth mentioning is the fact that both CPU cores now run at the same temperature, whereas before there was quite a major difference between the two. This goes to show just how important a good application of thermal paste really is.
In this video, I showed you how to upgrade and repaste the CPU of a Dell Precision M4400 mobile workstation. As you can see from the results, I've not only improved the performance, but also quite dramatically reduced the temperatures. If you have liked this video, please be sure to hit the like button below and to leave a comment. If you want to see more videos, please be sure to subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next time.